If you go to the destruction of Atlantis, which if you were to map it chronologically, comes to 9600 BCE. If you were to map that in the night sky, the north celestial pole is exactly between the legs of Hercules in the sky. Civilization starts again right when Thuban takes its place as the North Star. If you go to the exact date of the start of the Hebrew calendar of biblical history, it begins the exact time that Thuban becomes the North Star. Socrates tells the truth, tells his philosophy, talks about different gods. They say he's corrupting the youth, they kill him. So Plato, student of Socrates, knew full well he can't tell you the truth. He has to veil it in all these types of likely stories so that they can be told and passed on by anybody, but that the real teachings and meanings, they would have to be taught and initiated, I guess, through him or his schools.
All right, greetings humans. Joining us today is my friend Jason Quitt, author, researcher, mystic, and one of the most original voices exploring the intersection of ancient wisdom, multidimensional experience, and celestial mysteries. He's been a four-time a joiner of the Multiverse, but this is his first time doing a recorded interview. He's been on the live stream 4 times. He was our 12th ever episode back when we only had 300 subscribers. What was that like for you? You decided to just give us a hand here. Let's give these guys a try, Jason. And welcome back to the show, by the way.
Thanks. It's always a pleasure. And well, I'm very interested in people that want to explore new ideas. So when you came on the scene, you were already interviewing some really interesting people. And it was back in the day of when Pharos magazine was just getting started.
Correct.
And I was working on Astral Genesis, Gates of the Anunnaki books. And I was really trying to get out this kind of celestial geometry that's in ancient artwork. And you were interviewing a lot of people that were kind of exploring ancient civilizations. And I'm like, all right, these guys are going to go far. Let's give them the time of day and let's explore some pretty cool topics.
Well, we appreciated it. That was back when it was Mike and Dave's Multiverse. Shout out to Mike. Love Mike. He's just a busy guy. And yeah, well, we were really appreciative of it, so much so that we invited you for our year anniversary of our show. Do you remember that?
I do.
Yeah, and we really appreciated that. We had you and Ricardo and maybe someone else, Ricardo Calvario, but that was good. So just a little more of an intro, guys. After a series of profound mystical encounters beginning around the year 2000, Jason has dedicated his life to recovering lost knowledge from the unseen realms. He's the author of more than a dozen groundbreaking books, including the Egyptian Postures of Power series, which I have back there, Forbidden Knowledge, Revelations of Multidimensional Time Traveler, Astral Genesis, which I have back there, Gates of the Anunnaki, which I have back there, and his powerful new work, The Shining Island, Precession, Axis Mundi, and Plato's Celestial Allegory, which we're going to get into today, which features a special foreword by the renowned radio host and researcher Jimmy Church. Jason's a returning favorite at premier conferences like Contact in the Desert, where he regularly delivers sold-out lectures and immersive workshops on astral travel, ancient occult mysteries of the stars, and the great cycles of time. He's also been a featured speaker at events across alternative research circuit and has appeared on countless podcasts and programs, sharing his unique blend of firsthand experience and deep scholarly insight. We're excited because Jason has already appeared on Dave's Multiverse, like I said, 4 times during our live stream, but this is his first recorded interview, which I was surprised by, to be honest. So we're thrilled to finally sit down and talk about his incredible journey and his powerful new book. So today we're going deep into The Shining Island, his groundbreaking celestial reading of Plato's Atlantis as a living allegory of precession, the Axis Mundi, and the eternal return of the shining island. Man, you're a busy guy. You just got Contact in the Desert wrapped up last weekend, and you just got back. And it was must be your 10th time going to Contact in the Desert, something like that.
Not my 10th time. Usually around COVID era, I think there was about 2 or 3 years where I didn't go.
Okay.
But then it started up again and I started going back. But I believe I have to go back, but I think it's either 2016 or 2017 was my first time at Contact in the Desert when it was still in the desert. Like actually like camping out in the desert, very hot. And now it's moved into a beautiful hotel with lots of air conditioning. So it's great. You were there. I met you there. I think it was last year.
Last year, I believe. I keep going back and forth. Was it last year or the year before? But I believe it was last year. Mike and I were there. You were there with your book. We watched your presentation. There's a lot going on at Contact in the Desert. I've shared this story a couple of times on the show, but I'll share it again because I think it's relevant. I went to the first Contact in the Desert by accident. Just outside of Joshua Tree at a campground with my ex-girlfriend, and we were just looking for a place to camp because all the campsites in the park, Joshua Tree, were full. And so we found this spot just outside, and there was a straight up UFO conference going on at the place we decided to stay. So I went around, I talked to people, and I'd been into this subject as a young person. But then after I got into the military and went to college and stuff, I kind of wasn't paying too much attention to the topic. I was just super busy and kind of trying to grow as an adult. But then I went to Contact in the Desert. I had no idea that it was Contact in the Desert until I went to last year's Contact in the Desert. And I was talking to people, and people were explaining the history of it to me. And I was like, holy shit, I've been there before. Do you think that's like by accident, Jason, or do you think that's some kind of cosmic connection?
Definitely a cosmic connection. And it's weird how things line up in our future, where we don't really think about it, and then suddenly we're interviewing the same people, you're having the same guests on the show that are in these conferences that you just stumbled upon many lifetimes ago.
It's so wild. Yeah, I managed to interview Dahlia Burgoyne. Did you see her this year?
Yes, I did. And I got a chance to meet with her personally and have conversations with her. And I didn't really we have this group that goes out for dinner. It's kind of like a tradition. And she was there and she sat next to me this year. So we started talking, and in my mind, I didn't put the two together. I didn't realize it was her. And she starts speaking about experiences. And right away I knew, okay, this woman's the real deal, because she's had this very similar experiences as me, similar experiences I write about. So it makes me kind of want to go into that subject a little more and trying to develop my own psi abilities even more.
Yeah, for sure. We also interviewed Hakeem Isler. Did you meet him? Did you hang out with him at all?
I did. He was also at that same dinner, and I met him the previous year. He's a really good guy.
He is, and he's the organizer of the Psi Games. So you watched did you watch Dahlia's demonstration of mind sight and whatnot?
I have last year, and I just started to watch videos of this year, and this year I think just blew everybody away because she had people that were physically blind, even subjects that had no eyes whatsoever.
What?
And they were doing demonstrations that they can see.
Amazing. That's just incredible. She did a demo for, I think Mike was still with me at the time, but she did a demo. No, it was just me, but she did a demo on my show that kind of blew me away. And I watched her last year as well. And it's one of those things where, like, you know how like some people are really fast runners. Some people are good at math. Some people can play music really well. I think these psi abilities exist on a spectrum within all of us as well, in a similar vein to these physical and mental processes we can do. Right? Do you think that too? Like we all have sort of in us an ability to do some of these feats. We just haven't developed them. They've been suppressed. We've been told that they're fake or BS or whatever, but it seems like that is totally shifting in society right now.
Yeah, I think it's a part of us. I think it's a human experience. I think it has to do with survival mechanisms
Mm-hmm.
and being a
Yeah.
multidimensional person that we are. Um, I think that we've lost these abilities. We may have used them in the past to survive, like I said, like to see in the dark or to have this kind of precognition or these psychic abilities, just so that we could get to where we are today. But
Mm-hmm.
then in today's society, we don't need those things anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, it's kind of like a muscle that we have to use, or it comes through trauma. Or some people just wake up one day and they have it, like something happens to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think that you can practice these abilities, and the more you practice, the more they happen, the more you do it. And like even in meditation, like there's many times where like I'll be deep in a meditation, and it's almost like you pop out, or your eyes kind of extend outside your physical body, and you can kind of look around the world, look around the world and look around the room. And I think these are the type of abilities that are being harnessed with these type of trainings.
Yeah, I agree. I know I've experienced precognition without like realizing it until later. And then I was like, oh, I kind of predicted that that was going to happen. Like without without any effort, it just sort of happened in certain moments in my life. And I think everyone can kind of relate to that, but they do, they demo stuff like remote viewing, mind sight, precognition, psychokinesis. I don't know much about the pendulum dowsing stuff, but you practice remote viewing, and so a little bit, right, with your astral traveling.
I wouldn't
You
call
wouldn't
it
say
that. Yeah,
no.
I don't plan on seeing things. Like I don't set out to say I want to do this or check this
Okay,
out. It's more like spontaneous type stuff.
I think though I think there's a parallel between astral projection and remote viewing. So I think that's one that you could probably really, that's a muscle you could probably really train. Um, so with Contact in the Desert this year, can you give us any highlights, people you met? How was your experience this year?
Well, like you know me, like I'll spend months of my year behind this computer screen.
Right.
And I don't really have an outlet to talk to people about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go to a place like Contact in the Desert, it's almost like you're bringing this group of people together that you don't have to explain things to them. You could bring up a very strange topic or a very strange idea, and they're on it. Like you could have a huge conversation about weird things, UFOs, consciousness, anything
There's
you want.
Dahlia there.
Yes, that's at the dinner. And so meeting people like Dahlia, very interesting, because like I said, it was just things would come up in conversation. And basically, we started talking about the weirdest things, like out of body experiences. We started talking about thought forms and how they manifest in that space, and how to deal with them. It's like, who do you talk about these things with? There's Darcy Weirs, a filmmaker.
Mm-hmm. There's Thomas Jane.
Thomas Jane. Now, this guy, one of my favorite actors. I don't know if you've seen the movie
Oh
The
yeah.
Mist.
Yep. Oh yeah.
That is my favorite movie. So, hanging out with him. And he's actually read some of my books, and we've had
Very
discussions
cool.
on, out of body experiences. So just to have these people there and, willing to open up about their experiences. Jacques Vallée was there. I mean, that's a legend right there. Um, and who else? And what was interesting this year was a lot of podcasters. That's
Okay.
Danny Goler, who
Hmm.
does the talks about DMT and hyperspace, and he came on the scene pretty strong with his red lasers. I don't know
Mm,
if you've seen those videos.
I have not.
Basically, what he found out through experimentation is in the DMT experience, he something came to him, and he put a red laser on the wall, and he
I have,
looked at the
yeah.
yeah, and he looked at that red laser, and he said he could see through it and see like the code, like the Matrix.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
And
I've seen a couple videos of that.
this was a great panel. This was a Friday panel we did, and names are really bad, so they escape me. But we were talking about consciousness and just basically thoughts, and what is consciousness. And you have some very interesting people on this panel. I know you have at the far end there. You have Chris Ramsey, who has a couple shows on YouTube. He does magic and UFOs. I think it's Area 52. Michael Phillip next to him, Third Eye Drops, I believe that's his podcast. So a lot of very interesting people to kind of delve into the mysteries of these experiences. And what's really interesting about Contact in the Desert, which I love so much, is that everybody there has kind of like their niche
Mm-hmm.
understanding or niche audience,
Mm-hmm.
and they really go deep into their area of research.
Mm-hmm.
And being someone who goes from, let's say, like workshop to lecture and just kind of bounces around, like you did last year,
Mm-hmm.
it's like each person has like a really good puzzle piece. And by the time you go through all these speakers at the end of the weekend, it's like you have this kind of grand perception of the phenomenon, which is not
Mm-hmm.
like one thing. It's like encompasses everything, but it's all one thing when you see it all together in like a bigger picture.
Yeah, man, that's what I was just thinking about that when you were talking because it started as a UFO conference, and now we're starting to realize as all these people are coming together that these phenomenon are all related. Our innate ability to do, psychic abilities, um, UFO phenomenon, and everything that goes on at Contact in the Desert. And it's like you said, it's all one thing, and you don't really see it as all one thing until it's all together. So you must go home with like this feeling of connection and feeling of like the bigger picture, right?
Yeah, especially for someone like me, it's definitely nerding out for a weekend
Mm-hmm.
and hearing what's new, um, and getting to actually go to see all these presentations. And a lot of filmmakers came this year too, and put their movies out there so people
Mm-hmm.
can go and watch their movies. So it's a great time. It really is. And I hope to continue the tradition of going back there because it's become a ritual of mine. Uh, I look forward all year to going to this conference.
Right. It's because you're like you said, you're in Ontario, you're doing your thing, you're into your studies, you're into your internal journey, and then you get to kind of go out and connect and everything like that. Um, my experience last year was very it was good. I met a lot of people, I met a lot of contacts for the show, that kind of thing. But it was like a lot. Like you're walking around and like, oh, there's James Fox, oh, there's so and so. And it was hard to pick like what what I wanted to go to because so many things happening at the same time. But I came back with a similar feeling of like, okay, the phenomenon is not just one thing. It's within us. It's out there in space. It's multidimensional. It's everything, and it's such an exciting time that we're putting all this together, and all these people are coming together, and now you can do it in air conditioning.
And because the U.S. government is pushing this kind of disclosure release,
Uh-huh.
so they're releasing the UFO docs. Uh, there were so many new people that contacted the desert this year.
Uh-huh.
So if this continues and becomes more mainstream, these type of events are going to get larger and larger.
Mm. Well, I guess since you brought it up, what are your thoughts on these releases on war.gov/UFO? I've done a couple live streams going through all the videos and whatnot. I felt like the second batch was like more intriguing than the first, but I have a hard kind of distrust for the government. So I I feel like there's an angle, there's a reason, there's a controlled aspect to this. How do you feel about it?
Exactly the same way. And I don't think we're going to get the actual truth from these videos or from these releases. I
Nuh-uh.
think that the release is very calculated, very political. And, what is a UFO? It's just an unidentified thing. And it could be a bird in the sky or a balloon or something that is unidentified. But, when they release a very grainy video of it, it could look like anything. So it's just things that it kind of pisses me off. But my true opinion of the phenomenon is so out there that I could understand why it would never be a mainstream idea. Because
Yeah.
even if you released that idea of what I think the phenomenon is, it would get no traction in the real world.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, because people who aren't, tuned into it, they're tuned into other areas of being a human. And then if all of a sudden the government or like Trump, I hate even saying his name on the show because now somebody's going to be like, one way or the other, but that's okay. But like if he sat down in the Oval Office and gave the disclosure speech and he said what it really was, most people either wouldn't be able to because they're just not tuned into it right now, so they wouldn't be able to connect to it, and it wouldn't make a lot of sense to them in a lot of ways. And I don't buy into ontological shock though. Like I don't think that we get that. Do you think that that's a concern? That's why they're controlling it, or do you think it's more
I
nefarious?
um, I think that it would actually cause a lot of problems
Mm-hmm.
if what I believe disclosure is. It would definitely cause a lot of issues, especially religious issues.
Yeah.
And remember, there's 7, 8 billion, maybe even 9 billion people on this planet right now.
Jeez.
And we're just talking about the Western philosophy, the Western mind here dealing with
Uh-huh.
UFOs, and especially in the United States, which is a heavily Christian nation. It could be interpreted in many ways, and a lot of people would reject it outright.
Mm-hmm.
So, in that way, yeah, I think it does go. It would be a conflict with a lot of religion, even though they say it won't. And I hear that priests or even the Vatican is talking about how would they kind of deliver that speech if that
Yeah.
day ever came.
Yes.
So they would have to kind of change their mindset of these things. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And I'm glad you mentioned sort of the Western idea of what this is, because there are other places in the world who are experiencing the phenomenon through a different cultural lens, and religion aside. And what we say it is might not be the same thing as they're experiencing or whatnot. So, but it is a global phenomenon that's being experienced cross culturally. Yeah, but I don't think we're going to get that. Like the president sits down and says, the full truth. But we'll, as we go through your story and your book, maybe we can get sort of an outline of what you think the phenomenon is as well. That's not really the premise of the book, but maybe we can get there. It's exciting times, though, wouldn't you agree? for I don't know, expansion of consciousness, for expansion of these ideas.
It is. And, I go back, you mentioned earlier, I started to come into this community in the early 2000s,
Yeah.
right at the start of, the Google, YouTube, internet. And it's like I remember when I was going to energy medicine school or shamanism, and I would try to explain like qigong to people, or Reiki, and they'd look at me like I was insane just talking about energy medicine or qigong or things like that. So we're talking about going back 20 plus years ago, where you couldn't even talk about qigong or Reiki or just simple things like this. Like it was something from the devil. And now we're talking about non-human intelligence. We're talking about like entities. We're talking about UFOs. And it's not me talking about it. It's like the government is talking about that. In fact, there's people in high levels of government that are talking about, aliens as angels or demons, or the Book of Enoch.
The vice president.
Yeah, like what world are we living in that we went from like people like totally closed mind to like the vice president and even the president talking about this side of the phenomenon?
It's wild. It's wild. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Alison Brown, but we interviewed her a couple weeks ago. She taught Reiki to Reiki. Is it Reiki or Reiki? Reiki. Tomato. She taught that to a group of nurses and social workers and other providers at a VA, a Veterans Affairs office, medical center in Charleston, South Carolina. And now nurses are not just able to use their medical tools, they're able to use these energetic tools as well when working with these veterans. And they even did a study that was like had some very profound findings. So you're right, like this is leaking into the mainstream in a way that none of us ever would have thought before. In fact, like you and I had a conversation offline about qigong and whatnot, and how I can use that for my own trauma and for my own back pain and things like that. And I ended up connecting with an acupuncturist who also practices Tai Chi and Qigong. So he's integrated those two practices into my acupuncture therapy. Then he bills the VA for it, which is super cool. He calls it neuromuscular re-education to the VA, but he bills the VA for it. So it's really cool because it's helping a lot of people. Now, you've been on the show and you've explained your story, your backstory when it comes to. I just think this is really important for you to share for the context of the audience, because, and maybe you don't think this way, but I think it's one of the most courageous stories I've ever heard, because you were dealing with this alone. You had nobody to talk to about what you were experiencing. You had to sort of fight through it and learn what was happening. When it comes to, it was almost an affliction of sleep paralysis that you had. And so I was hoping you'd give us the background of that, because that's really the catalyst that brought you into all this and into your writing and into exploring the phenomenon. So would you do that for us, please?
Sure. And, this is, I think, why it's important to share this type of a story, because, um, when I look back at my life, it does feel like lifetimes ago. It's like
Yeah.
it's so long ago in my mind. And uh, back then I was, I got out of college. I was into graphic design. I was into music. I was in a lot of bands. And me and my best friend, we opened a recording studio. Like this is how it all kind of started. And so I was having like the time of my life. Wasn't making any money. I was having the time of my life. And during that period of time, this is around 2002, 2003, working in this studio, suddenly I started to have these episodes of sleep paralysis. And
And would you explain what sleep paralysis is briefly, just so people get it?
sure, what sleep paralysis is that you wake up in the middle of the night and you're completely awake. So your mind is active, but you find yourself trapped in your body. So your body is still fast asleep. And what happens is basically you're yelling in your own mind to wake up or to move a finger or move it like anything just to wake yourself up.
Mm-hmm.
So people will call that like a night terror, sleep paralysis, where it's very scary. Like you don't want to be in that position. Um,
I've experienced it twice, about 15 years ago in the same like month or so, when I was taking a nap in the middle of the day. And it very much was one of the scariest experiences of my life. That's why I say your story is very courageous, because, as you're about to explain, you were experiencing this like regularly.
yeah, yeah, it became a real problem, uh, happening either nightly or weekly. And what was really crazy about the experience is when you have this experience so often, it's kind of like you get used to it. And so it's like I enter into this kind of sleep paralysis state, understand I'm in the state, and then try to wake myself up. But in this process, I started to sense something in the room with me, which,
That's what they say.
yes. So it felt like it's almost like I could sense or feel something enter the room, and as it's entering the room, my body goes into paralysis. So I immediately kind of freak out, but there's nothing I can do because I'm frozen. But this, where does your mind go? It goes into two places. Either it's like an alien abduction because of the movies, or like an entity or demon like religion. Like these are the kind of archetypes that are set up in our society, for movies or books or whatnot. That, what else could it be?
Mm-hmm.
So it became even more fearful because, if you're in this sleep paralysis state and you feel something in the room with you, you know what, so one night, I had enough. And the strange thing about sleep paralysis is, um, it's almost like you have a body within your body, which is also very strange. So it's almost like you can kind of wiggle or move around inside your own body. And I describe it like a sarcophagus. So it's like your body becomes, your tomb. So you're
Mm.
basically like trying to break free of your body or try to wake that body up. And
Yes.
one night I'm just struggling to try to wake myself up, and I'm pushing hard. I'm like thrashing inside my body. And I guess I pushed so hard that I popped out. And that was kind of like my first out of body astral experience in my early 20s. And it's just like what they describe in near death experiences, because I found myself on the ceiling looking down at myself, and laid out like a board, eyes looking up at myself. So I'm like staring at me on the bed. And I always tell people this is like, the slap or the cosmic slap. It's you're waking up into this other reality that, you instantly know it's real. Like you instantly know it's not a hallucination. You instantly know, oh shit, like I'm out. Like
Whew.
this is not a good this is not a good sign that I could see myself laying in bed. And then I got my attention was pulled to like the foot of my bed, and there was a very tall looking shadow standing at the foot of my bed. And that just scared me so much because I thought I died. And this was like the thing to take me to the, I guess, the next realm. And I was so scared that I just got sucked back in my body and woke up with like my heart pounding. So this is how it started with me. So this is like the genesis of my journey here. And it was from that point that it was almost like this door was open. You get like this taste of this other reality, which is more real than this reality.
What if history isn't linear? What if civilizations rise and fall again and again? Discover the shocking truth in Deja Vu, Has Everything Already Been? By my friend Alexander Cheshkovich. Grab your copy now on Amazon. The link is in the description below. And subscribe to Dave's Multiverse on YouTube, Spotify, and Rumble today so you don't miss a thing.
So I found myself on the ceiling looking down at myself, and something really drew my attention to the foot of the bed, and there was this tall shadow-like being there. And immediately I felt like this was a very bad thing. Just fear kind of filled my body, that I basically died and this thing is going to take me away. And it scared me so much that, I just got sucked back into my body and woke up. And it was absolutely terrifying, but it was like you stepped into a space that you know is real. It's like I can't convince anybody of this. It's just something that you have to experience yourself. And it just felt like this is like a real version of who you are, and you exist outside the physical body. So from that point, instead of like most people would kind of run away from this, and they do. So most people get very scared. They turn to religion and they say, okay, this is never happening again. There's something obviously wrong. And this whole subject itself is demonized too, So for me, it was the opposite. I was so curious about this state that all I was trying to do is figure out a way of how do I replicate that? How do I go back and feel that again? And I turned to meditation. And this is a very simple meditation. I just did it before going to sleep at night, where you just breathe and focus on they call it like inner dantian breathing, just focus on your stomach, breathe in and out. And it's almost like you relax your body to sleep, but your mind is still active. And there's this state in between this kind of waking and dream state. They call it like the hypnagogic state. And it's a very short window. It's a very small window. But when you enter it, like you feel your body fall asleep, it's like your body does actually go into paralysis yourself. So once you feel that, you kind of like drop in your body and you can kind of move around, like you said, with the astral body, pop out and have these experiences. Now, what's really interesting about these experiences is that one, you may find things in the room with you. So it's like, let's say you're sleeping, there's nothing, like with your physical eyes, you don't see anything. It's just you're alone in your room. But then once you pop out and have this kind of out of body experience, suddenly it's like these things that were once invisible are now visible in the room with you. Just like that shadow. It's like I could sense and feel the shadow in the room with me, but with my physical eyes, I can't see it. But once you pop out, it's like standing there clear as day, like it has a physical form that you can reach out and grab it.
Megan, do you want to? I think it's appropriate time to ask your question.
Well, yeah, I'm curious. At this point in your journey, like now that you've had lots of time to explore over in that realm, what's your interpretation of what this dark shadow figure or these other figures, entities that you're seeing? What are they, in your opinion?
That's a very deep question, and there's a lot of answers. But as for the main shadow, I believe that it's a part of our multidimensional self.
Ooh.
So it's a part of us that I like to call it the initiator. So that's what it was doing to me. It was like, it was not an evil intent or anything like this. It was just simply putting me in these states where then I had to break free of it. And by doing so, it's initiated me into this next place, and it's kind of put me on this new roadmap on where I need to go next. Because remember, I was working in a studio, I was enjoying my life. Um, I didn't expect any of these things to happen to me, but because it happened to me, I made the decision to leave the studio. I made the decision to go back and learn energy medicine, shamanism, qigong, and try to understand this other world that started to open up to me. So it's kind of like this pivot in my life, like a point in my life where my old life stopped and my new life started to unfold.
What did your like family and friends think? Did you were you able to talk to them about it, or?
Um, no, I did open up to my friends and family, but um, you could see the look in their face change when you're speaking to them, and you kind of know that there's a boundary there. It's like I shouldn't um, talk about these things with certain people. And back in the day, that was also a lot to carry. It was a big burden because, I have great family, I have a lot of friends, and to kind of take that part of my life and hide it and not be able to express it because I know that they'll look at me differently. It's a very strange place to be. And I really found my outlet in these different healing groups. So, like the Qigong groups, dowsing groups, um, all these consciousness, UFO, ancient civilization groups. I found like those groups knew all about this stuff. And when I got into shamanism, because I was really drawn into the native Canadian shamanism here, um, what I found very interesting is that, I would tell my story, and to them, that's just normal life. It's like that part of their existence was never taken away from them. So, they may have other words for it, but what I would describe as these journeys, they would just call it shamanic journeys. Like for them, they do this all the time. They do fasting, they do certain medicines, they do their sweat lodges. Like they really know how to connect to this other aspect of themselves and nature, and it's just part of them. So for us in this kind of Western mind, it's kind of um, taken out of us piece by piece over I don't know how many thousands of years until we get to a point where we're scared of our own shadow, literally. You know.
Um, that that's wild, and I wonder, like, take us through, like, so you said you got into shamanism, healing, modalities and things like that. How did those help you sort of resolve the fear and then explore the space in a more controlled way?
Okay, so um, this goes back to basically the beginning of these journeys, because, like I said, when I left my body, sometimes I wouldn't be alone, and some of the things that are in that space are not very friendly, and that's why um, people are very fearful of this, and I would say good. It's good to be fearful because sometimes you really shouldn't play with this stuff. And I started to have this kind of conversation with one of these beings in this space. And it basically gave me a warning, which was, and everybody should hear this because, it changed my life, is it said that my energy field is very weak. All right. It was like they would say Swiss cheese. And they said that because of that weakness that I had, it's kind of like a sickness, that if I would leave my body, I would attract things that would attach to me. So this gets into that whole kind of like possession or entity attachment type of thing. And that because of that, I would be easily influenced, and that over time, these energies could cause actual physical sickness or
And
mental sickness or
they
spiritual
did, right?
sickness. Well, this was they basically said, if you continue doing this, you're going to get a lot worse. All right. So there was this kind of danger that I was told about early on. And okay, so what do I do to fix it? Well, they say you have to strengthen your energy field. So this goes back to that traditional understanding of, qigong or the ka body from Egypt, that you have this energy body that you have to maintain and work at, so that when these things do happen to you, you're not being manipulated, you're not being pulled, you're not giving your energy away, and that you have some type of protection, which is not an amulet or a bracelet or anything like that. Your protection is literally your energy field.
Huh.
So you have to learn how to cultivate that. And so that's where I started to. That's why I quit the business and I went right into energy medicine school, because I wanted to learn about the human energy field, how to heal it. What is trauma? Why do we store trauma? How does it uh, trickle down from the energy world to the physical body, and how could we reverse that? And that's when I got into qigong, which is just basically we how was the word? We release energy constantly. We give our energy away constantly. How do we stop that process of giving our energy? And how do we then tune into the cosmic energy or earth energy to replenish ourselves, to heal ourselves, to grow our energy body? So it took years of practice and study to kind of get into that mindset and to get into that energy. And that's when I started to receive information about the Egyptian postures. So it's like through Qigong, through shamanism, through all these different things, it kind of opened me up to, call it, let's say, past life rememberings, or journeying to ancient Egypt and having astral teachers, basically, that went over different postures and techniques that I wrote about later in the book Egyptian Postures, which is just standing in different postures like the Egyptian statues. And these are the things that I started teaching people that kind of pulled me into this community. And what really interests me is you see all these statues all around the world, these ancient statues, and they could be seated, standing, laying down, and they'll be holding mudras or strange postures. And it was kind of turned into my meditative practice, where I'd find, let's say, a very interesting statue, and I would just copy that posture or that mudra and just meditate like that, and see what happens.
Very cool.
Yeah. And that led to sort of a healing and a better understanding of, like, were you able to control and heal your energy field so that you're not Swiss cheese?
Well, it's a good question. It's you start to gain the sensitivity, like we were talking earlier about, like psi games and how to develop that
Mm-hmm.
muscle.
Mm-hmm.
I started to be able to feel energy and sense energy even in the body. So it goes from like this kind of concept, this philosophical idea of energy, which I could totally understand. But then it becomes different when suddenly you could experience the energy and feel the energy. So I became very sensitive, where it's like I can walk into spaces and I can feel the energy of the room, and it's just either life giving or life taking, basically. Or I would start to feel like an acupuncture doll. So if I ate a food, for example, that wasn't good for me, it's like I could feel like these points on my body start to get painful, and then I would like use energy to kind of take that pain out of my body. So it became like an actual tool in my everyday life on how to work with these energies.
Mm-hmm.
So if
I'm
I'm
curious.
drained, Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, I'm curious how your family reacted to this journey you were on, because you said initially you couldn't really share what you were going through with them, and my own personal experience of trying to open up to my family about this stuff has been tricky. So I'm curious, did they accept it as you continued down that road, or are they still kind of skeptical to all of this stuff?
Well, I'll just say my mother's side of the family, I would say they're all very gifted and have had their own experiences. So um, they get it. They don't
Okay.
question any of this. Father's side, complete opposite.
Okay.
So it's like, when are you going to grow up? This is not real. Come back to reality type of things. So um, it's like, what can I do? It's like you either follow your path and your truth, or you let others decide that for you. And sometimes it's better just to take that part of your life and hide it when you're with certain people, and then allow it to flow when you're with others
Yeah.
that appreciate it, basically.
Wow. And that's why I said it was courageous, because kind of just trying to do this yourself and find answers yourself. But then you ended up finding a community of people who understood and were able to give you, some pointers and some teachings. And then you became a teacher yourself, which I think is so cool. And would you, because you wrote the book Astral Experiences, which is just an amazing book about, your journey through this experience. And you mentioned like being able to travel in time and space and things like that. And like, I know it's like a whole rabbit hole, but I wanted to promote that book too, because I think it's very good. But would you briefly explain, you know, this book? Because it's amazing.
Sure, and thank you. This book is basically a collection of my most um, intense experiences,
Hmm.
and I would say the most teachable experiences. So think about like 20, well, it even goes back to childhood with like ghost and paranormal experiences. But this book is like kind of a guide on where I see the phenomenon right now, because it changes over the years. And the first book I wrote with Bob Mitchell, which came out in 2015 or 2016, called Forbidden Knowledge, um, that's when I would like first started speaking publicly about these things to a larger audience. And it got wrapped up in the UFO experience type community. And Bob Mitchell himself was writing about experiencers and alien abduction. So yeah, that's the original book there with Bob Mitchell. And Bob Mitchell, like, he was a reporter and he was really interested in the abduction phenomenon. So it was kind of like a mixing of like the shamanic journeys, the out of body experiences, and then what people talk about alien abductions. And from my point of view, and this is what took me into the UFO world, is that uh, I I realized very early on that in these states, these out of body states where I'm not in my body, these beings would appear.
Hmm.
So for me, I knew I was having these kind of shamanic experiences. It was a multidimensional thing. It wasn't a physical thing. They weren't physically in my room as we know it. But when you have these altered states of consciousness, suddenly you can see these things. So people would describe these type of beings or these type of encounters almost word for word in abduction scenarios. And so I would tell Bob, I'd
Hmm.
say, you have to look at this a little differently, because sure, maybe there are physical abductions. I'm not discounting that at all. But what I am saying is that what if it's your consciousness being abducted or your astral body being abducted and not your physical body? So your physical body can be in bed, sleeping. You can have a camera in the room with you.
Wow.
That night you're abducted by aliens, but still your physical body's in bed, but you still have the experience. It doesn't mean the experience is not real. It means you don't understand what the experience really is. Because if you experience these altered states or out of body experiences, if you don't know these experiences well, it is entirely physical.
Yeah.
It like you still are you. You still feel like you have a body. You still have feelings. Like everything is completely real, and it takes time to understand that, wait a second, this is something else. This is not a physical experience, even though I feel like I am embodied in this experience.
Yeah, that's and so do you think that there's any amount of these experiences that are like physical abductions at all, like the classic gray aliens show up at your house and take you and your body up to a ship, like the your friend Fire in the Sky, what's his name?
Travis Walton.
Travis Walton. Yeah, like
Yeah.
do you think any of them are like that, or most of them are, a spiritual internal thing, for lack of a better word?
If I were to give it a number, I would say, and I'm even moving it further down the line, I would say like 98 to 99% would be this kind of spiritual side, and then very rare would be a physical abduction. And like you said, I have a lot of friends who have had these experiences of physical abduction, and they're very, very strange stories, because you do have these alien type beings like the
Mm-hmm.
Greys. And there's other experiences that I know of where people are taken to military bases. That the
Yes.
pilots of these UFOs are military people.
Yes.
And, they go to facilities that have, armed guards that are wearing, um, just like Army or Navy uniforms, watching these experiments take place. So again, it's like, um, if that's true, then disclosure will never happen, because that's a very dark thing to think about, that
Yeah.
the military would be involved with extraterrestrial beings, or a being where we don't understand. It doesn't have to be extraterrestrial. Could be terrestrial beings we don't understand that have high technology. And then again, what is this relationship between these governments or militaries and
Yes.
these beings? So that's why I think disclosure of that nature would never come out. But then there are whistleblowers that have come out and documents. I think Dr. Stephen Greer released years ago, over 10 years ago, about, I think it was CIA documents, where they actually um, created these abduction scenarios. So they would literally like dress up as aliens and abduct people. So there's also that possibility as well.
It's literally happened in the X-Files. And that's my favorite show. Well, that and Ancient Aliens, but and what's interesting is pop culture seems to be in on the disclosure in a way. It's been slow dripping through shows like the X-Files and other stuff, putting this information out there. Do you think that's intentional, or do you feel some of it might be like intentional propaganda, or do you just feel like that's creative minds and humans like exploring the phenomenon through media?
I think it's all the above. And when you go back to like counterintelligence, it's like, who are the whistleblowers that come forward that get the most airtime? Well, they work in counterintelligence. like as an actual job.
Uh-huh.
You know?
Right.
So it's like this is who we're getting our information from. And remember with Richard Doty and Paul Benowitz, Paul Benowitz was taking
Yep.
photographs of these drones, top secret military drones, and Doty was assigned to the case. And what did he do? Was he basically said, yes, these are real UFOs, you know? So the counterintelligence was telling somebody that what you're looking at is extraterrestrial when it was not. So sometimes they want us to believe that it's extraterrestrial. And we have to kind of sort through these things and why. Why are they doing this to us?
It's so deep and complicated because the government knows about some of it and has been exploring it likely since the 1940s, and likely for power and control purposes. And so, like you said, like some of these are the government and maybe these entities like collaborating or whatever, or sometimes the government's faking these experiences. And then you've got this whole other realm of that's outside of all that the classic UFO experience, which I think is like, and I know this is a big broad question. We're going to get into your book here shortly, but you mentioned earlier like about what you think the phenomenon is. Could you give us sort of the the short version of that so we can get into your book?
Sure. I would say there's a cover, a Jacques Vallée cover. You may want to pull it up. I think it's like something Mongolia. But basically, the cover is a gray alien and it's holding like a bunch of different masks. My version of disclosure is that whatever this phenomenon is, it's been with us forever. I believe it's part of this multidimensional space that we also inhabit.
Mm-hmm.
And through altered states, we can access it. And I believe that whatever these non-human intelligences are, whatever archetype or mask we give it, it kind of alters itself to our understandings or what we can understand.
Like cultural understandings or time, like the time you're experiencing it, whether it's 1,000 years ago or right now, kind of thing.
Correct. So that it kind of changes with us. And I guess it holds these kind of archetypal images of, the demons, the space beings,
Fairies,
all these things that we can call upon or try to understand, but it's outside this kind of physical dimension, and maybe they can manifest within our physical world. I would say more likely is that they are tuned into our minds. They're tuned into our consciousness. And because of that, they could project themselves through our own minds. As in, let's say all three of us are together in a room.
mm-hmm.
This being could enter the room that looks completely physical, walk into the space, and only one of us will be able to see it.
Ooh,
And
creepy.
it's not because they're invisible. It's because they've projected and used our mind to manipulate the images that we actually see in the space.
Huh.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I
So
love the
that's
image.
yeah. So that's what I really believe, and it gets into all these other things of could it be disincarnate beings? Could it be other beings that have evolved outside of a body? Could it be consciousness itself trying to communicate with us or communicate to us through our minds or through these non-physical worlds? And what's really interesting is that these type of beings, even what people describe as aliens, like greys or reptilians or mantids, these beings are known about in shamanic circles when you do certain plant medicine ceremonies. So you could have these altered experiences, especially like in ayahuasca ceremonies, a very common thing is called dismemberment. And basically, it's like you're taken up on a spaceship, and these beings, like greys or reptilians or mantids, they do surgery on you, take you apart, and reassemble you. You know, so you have this very real alien abduction type experience, but you're on the forest floor, ayahuasca journey, and you have shamans watching over you.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Oh,
have these exact same scenarios happen in different situations. And I think it's just a way of our mind interpreting um, the experience using these very ancient archetypal um, things that it doesn't matter what culture you're from, you still have these same experiences.
Huh. My friend Adam Butler, I don't know if you know him, but he's done DMT like 1,000 times. And DMT has shown him basically all the same entities that you're describing here. Grays, dark figures, a lot of mantis interactions. He had a mantis interaction that he said was really unsettling, but also seemed to have given him, like you mentioned, surgery, but it seemed to have given him some kind of what he describes as a DNA upgrade.
Yeah.
And so I guess wanted to ask, like, what do you think the role of psychedelics is in this as a tool? And have you explored that? You probably don't even need to.
Well, I actually did explore all those different avenues of plant
Okay.
medicines because I was, one, for shamanic training, but two, I was very curious by hearing stories that these type of medicines were like the doorways that I would have in these out of body experiences. So I wanted to see if it was the same. And I would say all roads lead to Rome, basically. It's all part of the phenomenon, and some of these things get you there fast, but you don't have to use them. Like I didn't use them for my initial things. I only
Okay.
came into it later to try to figure out if it was the same. And the truth is, my natural experiences were much better.
wow.
Okay.
So
How so?
well, I would just say that when you're doing, let's say, large doses of mushrooms or ayahuasca, there is an inebriation. Like you are intoxicated.
Okay.
So you are entering into a different mindset. Whereas when you're doing this naturally, there is no intoxication. There is no feeling like you're out of it. It's like you're just straight up you, and you don't have that kind of extra baggage on. Yeah, I would just say it's just the purest way of doing it.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Because those medicines kind of just thrust you into it, and you have a lot less control. Whereas you learned how to sort of control your energy and control the experience for yourself, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and there's no after big journeys, you may need like a day or two to recover from plant medicines. Like you definitely feel like it's like a drug hangover type of thing. I know with just straight DMT, it's not like that, but it is. Um, it is. You do feel weird afterwards, whereas just meditating, it's just like you're falling asleep and you're waking up. There's no after effects.
Yeah. There's no hangover. There's no throwing up and purging and stuff like that. Some people think that the purge is part of the experience, like part of the
It's like a
healing
detox.
process.
Yeah, and I totally understand that. Like I've done that, and So when people say, oh, I want to go do this ayahuasca experience, I said, well, I want you to know that you're going to be throwing up. You're probably going to be sitting on a toilet for the entire night. Like, it's pretty intense. And do you really want to be in like this kind of psychedelic state when you can't leave the washroom, basically? That's not it. It could be harrowing sometimes.
Yeah, and then some of them are like lighter than others. Like you don't get that so much with psilocybin, but like things like ibogaine, you do. I signed up for this because I've never really been able to experience much outside of this dimension, for lack of a better word. And I do think it would be healing for some of the trauma that I have. So I signed up for this sort of veteran ibogaine ceremony thing. I had to do like a whole, application and stuff. It was quite intense. There's going to be like a preparation phase. Then you go, then then there's going to be like after work and stuff like that. But for me, I think it's the way to do it, because I don't know if I could get there through like deep meditation the way you do. Do you think? Like, I feel like the abilities exist on a spectrum.
Sometimes you kind of need the kick in the ass.
Yes.
And even myself, I talk about all this crazy stuff, but like, I'm really a realist. I don't really believe anything unless it happens to me, and then I have to kind of step back and say, wait a second, this happened, I have to figure this out. So sometimes we do need a kick in the butt. And once you kind of open that up, because ibogaine, for example, if that's what you're going to do, is very intense.
That's what I hear.
And
have you done it?
No, I have not. I have not done it. I would like to do it, actually. I feel like I'm too old. I'm like only 45, 44. Yeah, I'm 44 right now.
Oh, same age.
And, I go to contact in the desert, for example, and I'm sitting around people in their, like, let's say 60s or 70s, and they're telling me about like the DMT journey they just took like last week. And I'm like, what? Like, so honestly, people are finding out about this stuff. They're doing it at any age. And I think that, especially with ibogaine, it has a real resonance with a deep-seated emotional trauma or memories. And because of that, it's very good for obsessions, addictions. That's what they say. So you have to report to us now. You're going to be the person that's going to go out there and do this.
Yeah.
And come back with your war stories.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about it. I'm a little bit concerned, but Megan knows I've been like exploring different ways to do this. We interviewed a dude who has the #1 rated ayahuasca retreat in Colombia. I considered that. But I think something like more tailored to veterans would be more appropriate for me.
Yeah. And, like I said, I'm very curious to hear what happens.
I will. You'll be one of the first people I mention it to, because you've supported me, a lot with your advice and things like that in regards to this in the past. So I'll let you know, man. I'll let you know. So let's get into the book. I know that's what we're trying to do today, but I just had so many things. It's been a minute since we talked, so I had so many things I wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah.
Is there a pivot point between like what we've talked about in your journey so far, to then exploring this new idea about Atlantis that's to me quite groundbreaking, because most things about Atlantis are like, I found this on a map, or, you know, I found this spot in Cadiz or whatever. Yours is completely different. Like, you read the entire story as a celestial allegory for precession in the Axis Mundi. Like, what first made you see the shining island as a mirror of, you know, the heavens, you know?
Well, it's a great question, and it all started back with my Astral Genesis book.
Yeah.
All right, so it was through writing the Astral Genesis book that I kind of stumbled upon this astrotheology of the stars, or the creation myths of ancient religions are written in the stars themselves. And I wasn't looking there originally. I was very interested in Egyptian theology, like the Egyptian Book of the Dead or the pyramid texts, because it's talking about the afterlife. And so I was very interested in what ancient religions say about leaving your body, what happens after death, the afterlife type of thing, which is kind of like the basis of where all religion comes from. All theology comes from this idea of, you know, well, where did you come from originally? What you have to do to live a proper life, and then what to expect in the afterlife. And one of the oldest sources we have is from Egypt. So I started to look into it, and I started to find things that were very different. So in my idea, I would say, naive mind at the time, I would read the stories literally, as in, you know, you leave your body, you have to travel to Orion, like the star system, which is the god Osiris, and then through the judgment of, like, say, weighing of the heart, then you can pass through. Either you go to the field of reeds, which is like their version of heaven, or if you're a pharaoh, you can travel to the northern stars and become a star in the heavens and sit with the immortal gods. And so originally, this idea in my mind was taken literally, like, okay, when you leave, like, you travel to the stars. And then I started to learn that it was a very different mindset back then. So they really believed, and, you know, I talk about this a lot, is that the astral body, or the spiritual body, is a star. All right. And then when you die, it's like your astral, which means the star body, your astral body then returns to the heavens, because that's where the gods are. The gods are the stars, and that you are a star of the gods. And depending on how you live your life, you return back to your original star. So it's kind of like saying, like, we talk about star seeds as like this new age concept. It's new. It's actually the oldest religion we know, because going back to the earliest text, let's say the pyramid text, which is like 4,500 years, 5,000 years in the past, that was the goal, was to become the shining one, merge your Ba and Ka, become the Ak, which is the shining body, the star body, and then you would travel through the stars in a very specific, journey of the stars, then take your place among the stars, because that's who you are. You know, so this is the mindset of the ancient cultures, which changed drastically maybe about 3,000 years ago. It moved into this kind of literalism, monotheistic type of idea of creation and creator, whereas the Egyptians and the Greeks, they believed as you as the star being. So that's where this all started with. So I started to really get involved in the astrotheology side of the ancient myths. So I would now look and dissect the ancient creation myths as the stars, because it tells you, okay, Osiris is this, Atum is this, the children of Horus, or the children of Atum, are the arms and legs of the creator, and you have to travel through this way to get to the northern sky. Like, it tells you word for word in these ancient texts. So that's what started with Astral Genesis. And then I moved into that to the next book, which is Gates of the Anunnaki, which go further back into the Sumerian, Akkadian, Babylonian traditions of the gods. And I found the exact same pattern, but also numerology as well. So combining sacred numbers, times of the seasons, time of the year, the division of time and space, and what stars are in the heaven, what happens on Earth. So this is kind of like my background in like learning about that the as above, so below, the stars are telling a story of the gods that's happening on Earth. So, you know, there's been a lot of talk about Atlantis. And as I was writing these books, I was studying all these different stars and trying to learn about their stories. And I actually put this slide up when I was on Beyond Belief with Jimmy Church, the Gaia show. So this was months and months ago. I throw up this slide, and basically it shows if you go to the destruction of Atlantis, which if you were to map it chronologically, comes to 9,600 BCE. If you were to map that in the night sky, the north celestial pole is exactly between the legs of Hercules in the sky. So I put that slide up. I didn't explain much about that. And for me, it was like so obvious that they were saying Atlantis is just beyond the pillars of Hercules. Well, pillars in esoteric traditions, pillars are one, the Axis Mundi, which is like the pole. The pillar is the pole in which the heavens spin around. And when there's two poles, it's these pillars of the legs. So it's this kind of divine legs, like the Masonic tradition or the Kabbalah tradition of, Jokin and Boaz are the two legs of the cosmic man that hold up the heavens. So because I study mysticism, because I'm very into the occult and all this language of symbolism and the stars, and that's my background into all this, I opened up the Atlantis story, and not the Atlantis story we hear about.
Right.
I went right to the original source, which is Plato. And Plato writes the Atlantis story in two works. One work is called the Timaeus, and one is the Critias. Now, these are dialogues that are given to Socrates, written by Plato. Now, what's very interesting is that the only complete version that we have of Atlantis comes from the Timaeus. The Critias is like half finished. So the story of Atlantis basically cuts off mid-sentence in the Critias. So we don't know the rest of the story. And then there was supposed to be a completely other volume to this dialogue, Hermocrates. So we're missing basically half of the book of Atlantis. But the book that we have that's complete, there's only one complete version of it, and it's called the Timaeus. And in the Timaeus, we get the introduction to Atlantis. And Timaeus is like the top philosopher in his day. He's the top astronomer in his day. And Socrates wants him to tell or to give his speech on the creation of the world through the demiurge. You know, what is the universe? What is the human being? What is creation? So that is the only complete dialogue we have of Atlantis. And it's through the beginning of that dialogue that Hermocrates basically says, hey, listen to Critias. He has a story about this Atlantis story where the ancient Athenians are battling these Atlanteans, and then destruction is brought on the earth. And so Socrates listens to this story, which is just like a synopsis or introduction to Atlantis, and he goes, okay, that sounds very good, Critias, but we're here to listen to Timaeus. Go ahead, Timaeus, and tell us your story. So that's how we get the original Atlantis story, first of all.
I didn't know that.
And then everything after is just people going back to try to interpret these works of Plato. And then when you get into, let's say, the 19th and 20th century, when you get theosophy and Edgar Casey and all these channeled psychics, Dorian, who did the Emerald Tablets, like these are all channeled materials that basically tell the story of Atlantis through channeled material. All right, so thousands of years after this. So when we are hearing stories of Atlantis today, what we're really hearing is the source material of Plato, because Plato said this. And then we have the channeled material that kind of gets overlaid with this story of Atlantis and mixed in with it. So now it's like we've created this new mythology of Atlantis. So in this book, what I did was I didn't go anywhere near the channeled material whatsoever. I just went right back to the original source material, the original translations from Plato, where the story comes from, and then broke it down basically line for line. But the main hypothesis of this narrative is that if you talk to any scholar in Plato, any scholar in this type of work, they will tell you, and they won't even budge, they'll say the story of Atlantis is an allegory. It's not a history. It's not anything like this. You know, you don't even have to look on the planet for this, because it's a completely made up story. It's a written device, and this is where they're going to stick to that story. Now, in the story itself, Critias explains that this is a truthful story, that this does come from history. All right, so they claim that it is an actual thing on this planet, and it did actually happen, completely real. So you get this fighting between people that it's 100% real, it's a real place on the earth, and then you have, no, it's just an allegory. So I'm going the middle ground. So I'm going between all of this fighting, and I'm saying, have you ever looked at it through the perspective that Timaeus, the story that Timaeus is giving about creation itself and how creation is built, because he gives a very long he gives a very long speech about what the universe is, how it moves, what creation is. And then the story of Atlantis comes along, and it's actually almost using these same words, but it's telling it in a story of Atlantis. So what if the Timaeus and the story of Atlantis are actually the same thing? They're two ways of explaining the same story. And that's what we kind of explore in this book. And we go through basically the timeline and the mythology behind the story, because, okay, you have to think about this. The story itself is a creation story, and it follows the exact same structure as creation stories before it.
Right.
So
which are the structure?
The structure is like, well, for example, you have Poseidon.
Right.
Okay, so Poseidon is the god of the seas. Then he falls in love with an earth woman. All right, so there's this earth woman, Clito. She's on this mound or hill. He falls in love with her. He bears demigod king children. So just first off the bat, you have a god, falls in love with a human, has offspring, which are demigods. Right. Where does that story come from?
Well, it sounds like the Bible.
Right. So it's the same motif, it's the same theme, structure, the god. And so the mound is basically the symbol of creation. The mountain is the symbol of creation. Like, where does the ark after the deluge hit land?
On a mountain.
It's always a mountain. So in all the stories going back to the Atrahasis, for example, the Akkadian story, the Sumerian story of the flood, all these flood stories is they hit a mountain, and that's where life starts again. The Egyptian creation myth is called the Benben stone. It's the mound that rises from the cosmic waters. That's what the cover is of the book. So you have this cosmic mound rising from the ocean, the dark waters of Nun. And then on top of that mound, you have Atum, or Ra, who now spurs creation. And what does Atum do? He produces the first twins. All right. Shu and Tefnut are the first twins, moisture and air. From Shu and Tefnut, you get Nut and Geb, which is the first twin siblings. If you go to the Atlantis story, it's the exact same thing. You have the birth of twins. And then the twin, for example, the firstborn child twin, they named Atlas. And who is Atlas? Atlas is the Titan, or named after the Titan, who is the Axis Mundi. His whole job is to hold the heavens.
Yeah.
All right. So you have to understand symbolism. You have to understand myth to understand that the story that's being told is a creation story. It has all the elements of ancient creation stories, and it tells a cosmic story of creation. So this is what we explore. And we can keep going on and on and on. There's so many of these connections to the stars, and even how Atlantis is built, the geometry of it, the structure, the land and the waters, and the they say that it as if it was turned on a lathe, this geometric structure. Now, I don't know how much I want to give away with the book, and it gets very deep, but what we do is we use the 9600 BC timeline that it's given. So if we do as above, so below, let me see if I could just pull up a slide here for you.
I just find it's so you, Jason, to take the middle ground on this. That's a very you thing to do. I'm ready if you are.
Okay. So today, when we look up at the North Pole, or the North Celestial Pole, we all know that the star in the sky is Polaris. And Polaris, as the North Star, all the stars of the heavens spin around it. So we call it the Axis Mundi. It's the vault of heaven. Everything moves around Polaris. But the axis shifts. So it's 1 degree every 72 years. So as we turn back the clock, the pole star changes in the sky, which means the stars take on different meanings as we go back in time. So if we go back from Polaris, and let's say go back to the age of Taurus, which is the beginning of the pyramid building days, you have a pole star called Thuban, which is in the constellation Draco. Right? So that is the star that's venerated. Okay, so, first of all, what makes a pole star important to ancient cultures is that once you have a proper pole star, you can navigate the earth. All right, so it's guidance, it's navigation, and most importantly, you can travel the sea. So if you're out in open waters, you need to know the northern sky, and you need to have a place marker like Thuban, like Polaris, if you're going to be able to travel the seas, because that's where you get latitude, and that's where you get your directions at night. All right, so it's the most important star in the sky is the North Star. So if we go back in time, we can measure and understand what the sky looked like. So if we go all the way back to the destruction of Atlantis, for example, we get to 9600 BCE, which is in the age of Leo. that North Star doesn't exist. There is no North Star in that time period.
There's no North Star?
No. It falls between the legs in open space between the legs of Hercules. So you can see it right at the top there.
Wow.
Okay.
So, if you take the story and you apply the as above, so below, and you can say the destruction of Atlantis is outside the Pillars of Hercules, or Atlantis was outside the Pillars of Hercules in the great Atlantic Ocean. In ancient times, the ocean was referred to as space, or the stars, the cosmic ocean. So all we have to do is kind of just change the lens from planet Earth to the stars, and then now we have a map of this. So if we go back one age, and this is what they call the Platonic year afterwards, once it was discovered, but an age is about 2,000 years, 2,160 years. If we go back to that time, we get a very interesting alignment. If we go back to, let's say, around between 11,000, 12,000 BCE, the brightest star in the northern heavens is the North Pole, which is Vega and Lyra. And that would have been basically the brightest star that would teach humanity, or ancient humanity, how to navigate the Earth. All right, so it's the most important star in the sky. And if you look where Lyra is on your screen, you cut it directly across to Polaris. They're almost exactly polar opposites. So the two most brightest stars in the northern heavens are twin stars, Vega and Polaris. All right, so we're in the epoch of Polaris. So it's the brightest star in the North Celestial Pole region for about 12,000 years. And then on the opposite side, Vega is the brightest star for 12,000 years, give or take. So you have these twins, the birth of the twins. So if you go back in age to when Atlantis was at its height, and it talks about this in the Critias and Timaeus, it says that there was a time for many generations that Atlantis was in perfect harmony with everything. And everybody was in their allotted land, and everything was perfect. And they said over time, their bloodline weakened. Basically, they got too muddied with human genetics, and that they started to expand outside their allotted territory. So I just want you to think about this. If you just turn back the clock from 9,600 BC to just one age, it lands where the brightest star in the heavens is Vega. And all the stars of heaven would, if you looked up in the sky, would revolve perfectly around Vega, like the entire universe is in harmony and order. All right, so you take this kind of, that's why we get the name the Shining Island. The Shining Island is Vega. And all the heavens turn around Vega in this perfect harmony, these circles within circles. But we get into more because Timaeus describes the universe and God as circles within circles. He also describes it as seven circles and an eighth circle outside, which is the Platonic spheres of the wandering stars and the fixed stars. So in the Timaeus, they tell you about these circles in regards to the turning of the universe. And then in the Atlantis story, they build those same circles in the structure of Atlantis. That's why I'm saying it's two of the same story in just different words and different mythologies. So you get into the story, and I'll just, give the whole plot away. What you get into the story is where, okay, so let's say you have Vega and Lyra. Everything spins around it in perfect harmony for thousands of years. And then as precession moves, it moves to Hercules. So Hercules could be seen as the ancient Athenians and their battle against Atlantis. Now, they win, the Athenians win, the destruction of Atlantis is between the pillars. Lyra goes under the water. So if you draw a line at the top there, you have Lyra and Vega under that line. So it's like under the celestial ocean. And then you have the Athenians who are victorious, but only for a short time, and the earth swallows them. What's interesting is that Hercules does become the North Star, Tau Hercules, about 1,000+ years later, around 7,400 years, or 7,400 BCE. And what's interesting is that the pole star is one of Hercules' legs, and it just basically, so you have Hercules spinning around the pole. It's like he's falling into the earth. And then after Hercules falls into the earth, you have 6,000 years of no celestial North Star. It's the deluge. There's nothing there. So you have 6,000 years of no celestial pole until the arc of the precession hits Thuban at the beginning of the Pyramid Ages.
So
and that's when
during that 6,000 years, would there be like, you called it the deluge, so there would be like no harmony?
Right. There's no fixed stars. There's no travel. It's like you lose the knowledge of the stars.
And then the Pyramid Age, how does the Pyramid Age connect to like, because that seems like a golden age, you know, when they're building the pyramids. It's a reharmonization of the system.
Yes, civilization starts again right when Thuban takes its place as the North Star.
Wow.
And what's very interesting about this time in history is that if you take biblical history and you take the Hebrew calendar, because they trace the genealogy back to the creation of mankind or the creation of the world, that's why they say it's about 6,000 years is the start of the earth. But right now, I think the Hebrew calendar is like 5,700. I have to look, but like close to 6,000 years. If you go to the exact date of the start of the Hebrew calendar of biblical history, it begins the exact time that Thuban becomes the North Star. It's like that's when history and the world starts again.
Very interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. I wonder, like, a question I have is why wouldn't Plato, as the sort of the master of, I think you called it the likely story, why do you believe like did he know and hide, or did he not know sort of the majestic cosmic vision inside, you know, the story, when rather than just writing it as a straight allegory? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I think this is the reason he started his school. It's part of this whole initiation process, and this is why the book was never finished, is because during that time, I mean, just think about Socrates himself. Socrates was killed, is murdered by the state because he, for impiety is what they called it back then, was basically his teachings went against the state. All right, so Socrates tells the truth, tells his philosophy, talks about different gods. They say he's corrupting the youth, they kill him. So Plato, student of Socrates, knew full well he can't tell you the truth. He has to veil it in all these types of likely stories so that they can be told and passed on by anybody, but that the real teachings and meanings, they would have to be taught and initiated, I guess, through him or his schools. And I think this is also where we get the idea of secret societies, is that if you were to go out in public and talk about these things that went against civilization at the time, or the state or the religion at the time, you would be murdered.
Right.
And the people that knew about this stuff would also be murdered.
Right.
So I believe this is why secret societies even exist in the first place, is that they were a way to initiate and hide these stories, or give the keys to these stories under the threat of being murdered. You do not reveal these things or unless you're going to get killed, because at that time you were going to be killed if you spoke about these things. And precession, what's interesting about precession is that Hippocrates, I believe his name, he came about 100 to 200 years after Plato, and he discovered the precession of the equinoxes. So he discovered this, he mapped it out, he got the math of it.
Was he the first one to discover it, potentially?
So if you go into the history books, he's the one who's officially the guy that has put this together. And it's only
could have been like one of his understudies or something like that, but he's got the credit for it, or
he gets the credit for it, but he names it after Plato.
Okay.
Because in the Timaeus, Plato talks about the great year, saying that all these circles, which are the wandering stars and the fixed stars, when they all come together in harmony through their cycles, that's when you get the great year. And these are very long stretches of time, is what he talks about. So he describes precession in the Timaeus. He tells you how it works in the Timaeus, but he doesn't give a time period.
So he doesn't give the time period of 25,772 years?
He does not. All he says is that when all 8 spheres come back into alignment after very long intervals, that is the perfect year or great year.
Okay. And Graham Hancock was kind of onto this 30 years ago when he was writing about how these major ancient monuments, ancient megalithic monuments, were aligned to precession. Why do you suppose they did that?
I believe that, like I said, the gods were the stars. The as above, so below principle of, what you see in the sky reflects what's happening on the earth. You could simply put it as agricultural cycles. And that the heavens were so important for this type of seasonal understanding or seasonal knowledge, and also navigational knowledge to travel the earth. You can't go from place to place without knowing the stars. So that was a very important teaching. And I believe this is why all these sites are aligned to this, is to keep track of the moving heavens. That's how important this was.
Okay. And the book is full of like a lot of geometry and a lot of
star charts
and things like that. That if people are interested in really going deep into this, and understanding the geometry related to the mythology and all that stuff, it's in the book. But I was wondering, because I read the book, and one of the most exciting sections was about Gobekli Tepe and the whole terrestrial witness thing, and Pillar 43 and Enclosure D. Why does that feel like the perfect counterpart to Plato's idea?
That's why we call the chapter the terrestrial witness, basically. Because we hear the story and we have the date, and we actually have a site on planet Earth that was around during the date that Plato said Atlantis sunk.
Right, which is Gobekli Tepe.
Gobekli Tepe.
And the whole region, right? Testapler region.
So it's like around 9,000 BC to 9,600 BC. So what the whole concept is that what happened during that time period, and it's the end of the Younger Dryas. You have
it all lines up.
It all lines up perfectly to that story of flooding, coastal regions, earthquakes, climate disasters. All these things line up to that one date of around that time, 9,600 BC.
It makes sense for the intentional burying of it as well, right?
To save it. So the whole concept of that chapter is, what if we have a civilization that witnessed those changes on Earth, witnessed the star, let's say the North Star Vega, move out of alignment And once that star moves out of alignment and it moves into Hercules, suddenly the Earth falls apart. You have disaster after disaster. You have to relearn the stars. Maybe that's what Gobekli Tepe even is. Maybe it's like a way of preserving the star knowledge and teaching the next generations to follow the stars or the stories of the stars so it won't be lost.
Wow. Yeah, it's just wild how the timeline lines up, the alignments of the monuments line up.
The myths tell the story exactly, though it lines up with the stars. Like it's just this one grand picture. Like they say, the greatest story ever told is in the stars. So that's the concept. And if someone comes to me and says, well, you have to believe in the physical Atlantis, I would say you have to think about the words that are, because everybody's trying to take the words themselves and stretch them or say he may have meant this or he may have meant that. If you're going to talk about physical Atlantis, it's in the Atlantic Ocean. It's outside the Straits of Gibraltar. The only real place would be like, the Canary Islands and the Azores, things like that, as a physical thing that's there now. But Plato says that it's bigger, or it's larger than Asia and Libya together. Now, if you take that and figure out what that actually means, that size is basically the size of North America. So it's saying another North America is in the middle of the Atlantic, is basically what he's saying. And another weird thing is that they were saying that they said the island was full of elephants in the original story. Like that was the main animal, was elephants. Well, there's no elephants in the Azores. Okay, there's no evidence of any elephants in any of those islands, but there was mammoths in North America. So.
And North America took the brunt of the Younger Dryas catastrophe.
Yeah, exactly. So could he be speaking, could Atlantis be North America is the next question. And I know a lot of like Templars believe that.
Yes, Scott Walter does.
Right. So that would fit perfectly with Plato's description, because he says the size, which is pretty much the size of North America. He says elephants, which could be considered mammoths.
Mammoths, yeah. Which were flash frozen in the Younger Dryas catastrophe.
Right. So how did he know this? Is it just made up? Like we could never really know the answer because Plato's not here, but we could with our eyes today, we can start to interpret these things and create this understanding. I always go back to the work of Randall Carlson.
Yeah.
And
that's what I was thinking.
He is amazing when it comes to this geography or geography. And if you were going to say, okay, what is the physical location? I would say go speak to Randall Carlson, because that's probably the most accurate pinpointing of Atlantis in a physical sense. But this book is using the words of the Timaeus and showing how word for word he builds Atlantis, and word for word how he builds the universe. And it's almost like a mirror. So it turns into this celestial allegory that once you put it together, it makes total sense in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, there's too many coincidences for it to be a coincidence. When it comes to all the different connections, I don't know. Are you the only person looking at it through this lens that you know of?
Well, I would say yes. In today's age, I'm the only person doing this. But the students of Plato, the students of Aristotle, the Neoplatonists, they also believed that what the Atlantis story was a celestial allegory. In fact, there's a lot of books written by Neoplatonists going back 1,000 years almost, describing Atlantis and the stories as the structure of the heavens. It was Plato's own students, all right, that came years later from Aristotle to the Neoplatonists. They believed that it was a celestial allegory. And they wrote books about it, how they believed that it was the movements of heavens and describing the demiurge. So today we look at it as a physical thing, but back then his students were looking at it through the eyes I'm talking about today.
Okay. And that's one of the last questions I wanted to ask you was about today, the eternal return chapter, and like, are we entering another period of axial transition right now? What does that mean for sort of the shining island when it comes to us? What should we be prepared for? How far along are we in this celestial alignment process?
Well, we are changing. The axis is always moving.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the final phases of Pisces. All right, so we still have Polaris. So Polaris will still be the North Pole for at least another 1,000, 2,000 years. But we are moving into Aquarius, and usually what they say in these transitional phases, it's always a transition. You know, there's always some type of big change that basically we start again. Be it, let's say, the transhumanist thing. You know, they're pushing like the whole AI.
Mm-hmm.
You know, building all the data centers and the cloud or the satellites to hold this new consciousness that we're stepping into. So I can't tell you what the future looks like. All I know is if that is the future, that's a huge step for humanity. Huge step. Could that even be like the whole Elon Musk vision of multi-planetary system where we become the aliens? We leave our planet. We go travel and try to find new places. So that is where we're looking at right now, stepping out of that age. Because think about it, like the warring religious factions right now, it's like we're still in that.
Mm-hmm.
We're still fighting with these religious ideas. And for us to move into that future that they're describing, that can't be anymore. It's like you need to step out of that to understand this new age or this new thing. And most people don't want to hear that or even accept it, but it's killing everybody. It's killing us now. You know, we can't progress as a society with
there's
this.
wars happening over it all over the world right now because of it, you know, and
Right.
there's oppression, and like you can get into open border weird stuff going on that the government's doing, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but
that if you take Lyra at the time, let's say 12,000, 11,000 BCE, where Vega is the North Star, it's the brightest star in the heavens. All stars revolve around Vega now in perfect harmony and order. Even the stars of Lyra, when you trace them around the pole, you get these perfect spheres within spheres, that if you overlaid it over the image of Atlantis, it's almost a perfect fit.
So in the legend, like Atlantis being destroyed, is that Vega like leaving?
Yes, it's going outside of its allotted boundaries. And here, I'll just throw this up on the screen right here. Yeah, here we go. It's like they talk about the 12 laborers is that Atlas, who's the Axis Mundi, who holds the vault of heaven, he tricks Hercules into taking on the burden of holding up the sky.
Right.
So if you just overlay the image of the stars.
Wow.
It's the passing of precessions, the passing of the old order of Lyra as the greatest Axis Mundi to Hercules, who's now going to take on the burden of holding up the sky.
Yeah. It's very fascinating that it's all connected. The mythology it feels like the most important part that you've really got to pay attention to and then overlay it onto everything else, right?
Yes. And that's what we do. And trust me, like, the book is extremely detailed, as you know.
Yes.
And goes into a whole lot more than what was described here. And I think it's funny because I think I sent you like 10 copies of this book as I was working through it.
Several, at least 4.
Yeah. And it's like I would write it, and then as I'd go through the chapter, I'm like, oh my God, there's another connection that's so important that it just fills out. So as I'm going, it's like the story is just getting filled out, and it's going to other cultures. It's going even to Mesoamerica, and the Popoval has the same stories. It goes to India with Mount Muru. You know, it's like these stories are set up in the exact same way as Plato put the Atlantis story. And then people can say, oh, well, that means Atlantis is real because, you know, all these stories are the same across culture and across the sea. But again, the heavens are the same as well. It doesn't matter where you are on the earth. When you look up, you see the same thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I encourage everyone who's watching to check out the book because it is very detailed and there's so many connections that it's and I bet you could keep going and keep finding more if you kept looking.
Yes.
And I really think it puts the picture of Atlantis into a much more broader space in which to look at it, both like as above, so below, and you can make all these connections. And it's so fascinating to me that it was described allegorically so that in order to sort of keep it under wraps, for lack of a better word, to pass the knowledge down without getting in trouble. Before I got booted, I was asking about, the allegorical deluge we might be experiencing right now. And are you worried about that at all? Or do you think this could push us into, a new age of enlightenment?
I would say, and I wrote this in the book too, is that the last line of every civilization is not written. All right. So we don't, and I think this is why Plato left the Critias in the middle of a sentence. He left the work unfinished because no civilization gives us their last words. So we don't know. We can't predict. But after every single one of these falls that's described in all these cultures, you have this new shining island. You have this new ark hitting the mountain and then being blessed by the gods, and a new civilization emerges from this. And that's where we are today. We are the product of countless falls.
Yeah. And the last line of each civilization is not written. That freaks me out a little bit, but at the same time, it brings me a little bit of hope because we are in this weird space of major transition culturally and technologically, but we're still stuck in these arguments about religion of the past. And so there's going to have to be a tipping point at some point when it comes to that. So I highly encourage everyone to check out the book. Sorry, you're just doing the same thing I was doing. And I guess the last question I have for you is, like, I know you just poured the last couple of years into this. Are you going to take a break? Or do you got a new thing you're going to start working on? Because you're always working on something. Do you take a break after like a big push like this?
Well, the truth is I didn't even think I was going to write this book. It's something where it's like you just start to pull this one thread, and suddenly this avalanche happens, and I'm just trying to keep up with it. So right now I'm trying to kind of take this work and get it out into the public so that people have a completely different perspective of the Atlantis story and Plato and the stars, because like I said, it's like once you put these pieces together, our ancient ancestors, they really, I believe, really had an understanding that we don't give them credit for.
Cross-culturally and cross space and time, they're all making the same connections, and understanding precession, at least from a certain point. Yeah, we're in this like cosmic, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. Cosmic turning wheel or something like that. That something or somebody set up to like go to behave cyclically, to teach us lessons and stuff. It's quite
Yes.
it's quite deep.
The Whirls. Ernest P. Whirls.
The churning of the Milky Ocean.
Correct.
Well, Jason, I really appreciate the time you spent with us today. We're gonna promote you in this book, and I always appreciate your thoughtful approach to things, and how you sort of just dive into stuff and really do the work, because everyone, the book, the work is in the book, and you're going to see how much work you put into it when you read the book. And are you available, Jason, for people to ask you questions about the book if they buy it, and help them make these connections?
I could try, but that's the whole reason I write the book, is hopefully I answer the questions in the book.
Yeah.
And that's why I also do these shows, which I'm going to do a lot more of. And as people know who I am, going back to my previous works, that I pretty much give everything away on these shows.
Yeah.
So it's not like the book is hiding behind a paywall. It's like the book will give you more, but you can get the information just from hanging out with us here.
Love it. Megan, any final questions for Jason?
We're just grateful for your perspective and all your hard work to dig into this. I really resonate with the way you approach Plato's Atlantis, and especially just learning as well that his own students thought it was a celestial allegory. And just really interesting. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've been like lying awake thinking about this for a couple of weeks, and I've been looking forward to talking to Jason about it today. So the link to the book will be in the description. Jason, really appreciate it. Light, love, and truth is how I end all my shows. So I'll say that to you as well, my friend. Light, love, and truth to everyone in the multiverse. And thanks for watching. What's up, humans? If you're enjoying this content, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Megan and I are very grateful for all of your support, so thanks for joining the multiverse.